Hey y'all, James from TeaDB here, bringing you another Inbetweenisode. Hopefully everyone is enjoying all of these, this ramp up in content. Apologies that we've been missing out on the normal TeaDB episodes, but hopefully people enjoy these as well. So I am doing another ripe pu'erh. This one actually from a sample, but I'm going to go ahead and brew another steep while I am at it here. I have steep 5 already made, and this will be steep number 6. And this was actually not a cake, but it was a sample sent to me by Scott last year. So thank you to Scott again for this sample. And I thought it would be a good time, not because I'm drinking through a cake of this, but just because it is from the same basically range of cakes that Scott has created in 2019 with the Hekai. This is the Hekai. I brought on the Bulang recently. There's also a Mung Song and Bada tea. So yeah, I thought it would be a good time to bring it on, even though I haven't quite had the number of reps that I have on the other ones yet, for this tea at least. So unfortunately, it is the end of the sample, so I'm using a little bit less leaf than I normally would. Not significantly less, well, not a hugely significant amount, but 7.9 grams instead of like the 9 to 9.4 grams that I usually shoot for these episodes. So letting it brew a little bit longer. So Hekai, of course, is also a Munghai area, as are the other areas that I've mentioned. I believe Hekai is a little bit closer to Bulang, to Bulang, which is the more well-known mountain. A lot of tea comes from there. So we'd expect it to maybe be somewhat similar in characteristic to that. We'll see. Woody, very classical smells to this. Sometimes I feel like for the aroma, doing it on steep 5 or 6 can be a bit of a disservice. I feel like some of the more interesting distinctions in aroma come out a little bit earlier. But this is just sort of the rhythm of how I review ripe, so I like to keep it pretty consistent in that regard. So the aroma, I would say, is probably pretty similar to the Bulang. Just kind of a classic woody Munghai aroma to that. Cheers. Okay, so I'd say in contrast to the Bulang, it's a little bit creamier. Also, I'd say it's softer, has a little bit more of a texture to it. The Bulang itself is quite stout, and it's not like this tea is not stout, but it's a little bit more in that sort of refined category, I would say. Yeah, still a decent body. The texture, I'd say, is really what stands out so far as being fairly distinct. It's sort of... sometimes these ripe teas can get this really silky texture. I wouldn't say this is fully in that category, but it has some of that going on. So that's a nice thing for sure. I'd say it's probably a little brighter than the Bulang as well, which is kind of like just like a robust, I don't know, it's just kind of like a good workhorse of a tea, I would say. This one feels a little more elegant. Definitely still in the same category. In the Bulang episode, I talked a bit about how it sort of feels very classical. I think this tea also is pretty classical, maybe not quite as classical as the Bulang. I wrote in my notes earlier, which I was reviewing, is that this kind of tea sort of reminds me of the Huirun blend that Scott does. Of course, the Huirun blend is Bulang, so it would be regionally closer to the Bulang, but this tea actually reminds me a little bit more of that tea in the sense that it's brighter, it's a little more elegant, less of just like a stout tea. Cheers. Woody, creamy vanilla. I brewed it a bit longer. There's no bitterness to this tea. The Bulang can get a little bit, and and the Bulang in particular also has a lot of that, which is some sort of a blend. Guessing there's some Bulang or Lao Mani in that blend. So a little bit, not a ton of interesting stuff happening in that sort of like really strong category. But this is a really good, just sort of like, I don't know, this is just a nice tea to drink. I feel like there's some interesting complexities to it that aren't quite there for the Bulang. So I'm going to give it a little bit higher rating, I think. But I'd say I sort of place it in between the Bulang and the Bulang as far as how much I like it. Again, keeping in mind that these ratings are a personal rating, I'm not going to even attempt or pretend to be objective. These are more or less how I like the tea and how a tea would fit in to my rotation, just in terms of its appeal. So I'm going to drink a little more of this. Woody, even a little minerally, kind of interesting in that regard. You don't necessarily get that all that much in ripe teas. Yeah, so going to give this a 6.4 rating. So that pretty much puts it smack dab in between the Hekai and the Bulang, the Bulang and the Bawang. Really like that Bawang tea. I think that tea really hit the spot for me, just because it struck me a chord as being like very unique, and I like the way that the bitterness sort of integrated with the tea. But this is also a very nice tea to drink, so kudos to Scott for creating another good tea. Thank you all for tuning in. Let me know what sort of episodes you would like to see. Gonna be bringing on the last couple from this regional Monghai series that Scott has created for 2019 soon. So I will see you guys then.